Welcome, everyone. Very happy you came to this session, and let me tell you what we're going to do. You should have a packet of handouts. What we're going to do is review some resources for you, resources that are mostly online that I'm hoping will help you in your work, with your coursework and with student teaching to strengthen your content in your coursework and the work you do with your student teachers. And we will be looking at some links online. I have a number of links and resources on the first handout, but then I made some additional slides in part based on some conversation we had after my presentation last night. You don't have those slides, but I can get them to you, so no worries about that. But you have the links anyway, so you'll be able to get to everything that I show you on the slides. So we'll be doing that, and I would love to make this very interactive. So if you've used any of the resources that we talk about, and a couple people had in the last session, I'd love to hear about your experiences, and it would be great if you could share them with others. So, you know, this is an informal session, so feel free to contribute. In addition to that, I brought along some resources that we developed in a project that we're doing in New York City. It's a preschool continuous quality improvement project, and they're just some tools that I thought might have some applicability to the work that you're doing with your candidate teachers. So I will show those to you. And then if we have time, I have a small group little exercise or discussion that we may or may not get to. We didn't quite get to that last time. So let me start with some resources. And if you'll excuse me having my back to you for part of this, I'll get us to some links. I wanted to first...
Do anything?
Oh, that's okay. I'm good. Okay. Yeah, thanks. I wanted to first show you some resources on the CEFL site, which is the Center on Social Emotional Foundations of Early Learning. People call it CEFL. Are any of you familiar with CEFL? Oh, good. Okay, so have you used resources in your... Great. Okay, so let me show you a few things, and maybe for those of you who haven't, you might hear from those who have. One of the resources that I really like on here, they have a lot of video, is this video on practical strategies for promoting young children's social emotional skills. And what's so nice about it is that it goes through it talks about 3 stages that you want to use, or 3 steps that you want to use in teaching children social emotional skills. Show you just a little of it. And the 3 stages are to tell and show children, to demonstrate what the social emotional skill is so they understand it. Then you create opportunities for them in the classroom to practice it. And then you, as they practice it, find opportunities to reinforce it and kind of catch them using those skills and celebrate their use of it. So it's a very short video with real teachers,
Very important when it comes
and they're very wonderful, vivid videos. I'm sorry, the quality of our this isn't so great.
Solve conflicts.
I won't play this whole thing, but it's a great set of strategies, very simple, and it's applicable to teaching all social emotional learning strategies, these 3 steps, and really beautifully illustrated in this video. You'll see they have research syntheses and a number of training modules as well.
Teachers are accomplishing great things in their classrooms.
And here is the
first
famous
two levels
pyramid
give
that we'll
teachers
talk about in a
solid
bit.
foundation by creating positive
So I want to
relationships
show you, I'm
and
going to go
supportive
back.
environments for children.
Whoops.
Then, teachers can begin to use strategies to help children develop skills they need to build friendships,
Whoops, I
solve
have to go
problems,
back.
manage their emotions, and more.
How do I do that?
During this program, we'll focus on the third level of the teaching pyramid, social emotional teaching strategies.
Sorry.
With these strategies in place, it does not take long to see some amazing
Ask her.
results.
I don't have the block. She's got the block.
So these are the
If you want to play
three
with that block,
different
what are you going to say to her?
tell and show, practice, recognizing
Take
children.
turns, and then how do you ask her for the block?
The hard part I have is
Please.
turning these off when I get them
May-
started.
May I have the block? Very good.
Okay, so the other resource I wanted to show you is this section they have, especially for faculty, higher ed faculty. So you'll see they have syllabi, sample syllabi, and I found them kind of mixed. Some of them are stronger than others. There are pieces that you'll probably like and pieces that, you know, you'll say, oh, mine's better than that. But they're very interesting to look at. And of course, they're all on social emotional teaching and learning. And then they have these interesting modules that are called The Pyramid Model Goes to College. And these are, I'll show you one, very brief documents that provide activity, content that you can weave into your coursework. They're drawn from CEFL training modules that are, you know, CEFL training modules are mostly for practicing teachers. Almost everything on CEFL is kind of geared towards teachers that are already in the classroom, but they do have this section. So what they've done is they've put together these, you know, CEFL or the pyramid goes to college. And in these documents, they're explaining that you can take this content and weave it into your courses. They're suggesting some particular activities that you could do within your classes. And then they're suggesting some teacher assignment or student assignments that you could do. So it's a nice little package, and they have them on different topics. So here's in-classroom activities, and they have some built-in video clips. And I think each one is just about, you know, they have a large group discussion. They tell you how much time everything takes. Have any of you used this particular resource? Can you tell us how you've liked them?
I've liked them. What we've started using them for is we've created a Google document for all of the faculty in our department and under different strands of areas that we cover. And this has been an area that I find, especially our part-time faculty, really utilize because it's something that a lot of times when they're tackling these topics, it's the first time they've ever tackled it with adult learners. And so it's a really great resource for them to think about what that conversation may look like and how to structure the discussion
Great.
within class.
Wonderful. Have you gotten any feedback from them?
I guess not direct feedback about this. Overall,
Right.
I think people like that there's this
Resource.
I have found that people like, especially the videos.
Sure.
I find that it's really hard to find quality videos
Yes.
for early childhood classes.
Yes, and we'll be looking at more of those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do the videos have captions?
Yeah, some of them do.
We just posted, Sarah just posted these on the HERO website, the Higher Ed Resources Online, so you can get directly to these
Oh, great.
from our Higher Ed Resources Online.
Oh, that's fabulous.
But I'm not sure about the closed
I think
captioning.
some of them are and some of them aren't.
Yeah.
Our college is on this thing that we cannot show anything if it doesn't have closed captions.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm not saying there aren't some people who do it anyway, but they say it's illegal according to the,
is.
you know.
Yeah,
ADA.
it is.
They
Because on
cannot-
I run a website for the state board and all of our videos are
It's
closed
so
captioned.
frustrating
Oh.
because there are so many things that aren't captioned that are unbelievably multiple resources.
Yeah, that's, wow.
Maybe people need to contact them and ask them to do that.
Yes,
Because
right.
I'm sure, I mean, ADA is a federal, so
That's-
everybody else is
That's
doing
right, and this is federally funded.
it. Yeah, and since they already have the videos,
That's a great
it may
point.
be worth it.
That's a great point. So these are all, you're saying these are now all on Hero?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, that's fantastic. There aren't a lot of them. There aren't a lot of them yet, just a handful. But you know, you could even, people could make these up. I mean, if you look at Cephal material, it's such a rich website. You could begin to actually construct some of these using this same template. Would be a great project. Get some students to do it. It would be a great project. Now, I wanted to also highlight Cephal has some scripted social situations. So, you know, we were talking more yesterday about children who had experienced trauma and are having challenging behavior. So they do have resources there, and I'll see if I can get a good picture of these. They have several of them. Go up here. You can't see it very well. They have, I can use my words, the very popular Tucker Turtle takes time to tuck and think. You may, most of you, some of you know the Tucker Turtle technique for calming down, going inside your shell when you become angry and distressed and feel like you can't think of a solution to a problem. Tucker goes into his shell, and then when he calms down, he comes out and has lots of ideas.
They're wondering if there's a way to tweak
He's been
that.
in already.
He
This,
has?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
so sorry. I know, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I will tell you this, that, I'm going to try to get the PowerPoint, see if we can. The Tucker Turtle, all of these are, would print out as almost like books. You can print them out. So your teachers could print out these social scripts, take them and use them with children. They're very nice. They also have on this same page a wonderful list of books. And these book nooks are wonderful. They are book guides that can be used by your students. Big Al is one, and they're wonderful guides to using different books that have social emotional content and will help them mine all the content in there to do social emotional teaching in a read aloud with an individual child or a small group of children. And they're really wonderful. Let's see. The other thing, I want to go back to the same page. And these are just wonderful. These are case studies. See if I can at least show you a little bit. These are these wonderful case studies of children who have experienced trauma. They're children of different ages, and they're brief. They are wonderful springboards for conversation with your students about some background of behavior, challenging behavior they may see in a classroom. They also include a template for a behavior assessment that can be done in the classroom. Have any of you used these? Okay. Many times? Oh, tell us about them. Tell us about how you've used them for others.
Well, we use them in professional development because I'm actually with a provider. of
Okay,
aid
but
for
they
today,
may be very useful.
Yes, but I could definitely see them as being useful, and Bernie, you
Yeah.
know, from the higher ed.
Yeah.
Could you talk-
I've used them in intervention strategies class, especially the functional behavior assessment,
Yeah.
which is great. You can use it in an assessment class if you're teaching functional behavior assessment, or you can use it in, you know, just a general teaching strategy, you know, methods class.
So can you tell
These were
them?
developed at U of I, by the way.
Oh, really?
And when Mary Louise Hemmeter went
Uh-huh.
to Vanderbilt, the whole grant went to Vanderbilt, but many of these were developed by our doctoral and master's students.
Oh,
here in
great.
the state.
Great, great, great.
So we've used them since the early 2000s.
So how would you use it? How would you suggest people use it?
The case studies are nice because you can use it in small group in class. They're short enough that you can read through them and then help the students figure out, well, what kind of data would you take? What kind of graph would you need to show parents in terms of when the behaviors occur, what the antecedent, you know, conditions are, what the consequences are. So it's teaching. We like to use it to teach them to take data. You need the data,
Right.
especially now with RTI.
Right,
You've got to be able to take data on kids' behavior.
right. Okay, great. And there are several of these. Let's see if I can get to some more. So those are the case studies, and I'm glad to hear that you've actually used them in a class. Great.
There's another
Yeah.
on the book list that's not on here that is just, it has been a phenomenal book for, in the classrooms that I've worked in. A scary thing happened, I can't think of I think that's the title of it. A terrible thing happened, sorry. A terrible thing happened, and it's about a little raccoon who something terrible happens to, but you never know what it is. But you get to see him process it, and by the end, so you get to see these kind of emotions come, and then that there's emotion after that emotion.
Yeah.
But the back of it has resources and questions for those who are working with children.
Yeah.
How to utilize it for parents or for teachers, and it's been a great
That
resource.
sounds wonderful. Now, where is that resource?
You know, someone told me about the book, and so I just keep about like 20 copies in my office, and we use it for kids when I have students who have children that are in homeless shelters struggling or going through big changes. It's been a book. that
So
everyone's
a
loved.
scary thing happened.
A terrible thing
A terrible thing happened.
Yeah.
A terrible thing
It's not
happened.
like a class read aloud. It's like a child who's processing something. Sit
Yeah.
down, get the book and read it.
Right.
But it's fabulous.
Right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So the next resource I want to talk about is from Quality Center on Early Childhood Development, Teaching, and Learning. Do you all go on that website? Okay, well, this is a sophisticated audience, okay. And this is where you can find some really good video, I think. They have some nice video. So one of them that I wanted to highlight is the Fostering Connections. And again, I love this video because it is very brief. It's about, building relationships with children. And
Hello, and welcome to this short presentation on fostering connections.
what in New York City, we often can't find wonderful placements for teachers. So videos are so essential, or our student teachers they wouldn't see great teaching. So this is one such video.
The National Center on
So
Quality
this is,
Teaching
I
and
won't play
Learning
the whole
uses
thing.
the House framework to
Uh,
describe the effective everyday
if I can-
practices that lead to school readiness for all children. There are 4 parts to the House framework: a foundation of engaging interactions and environments, the supporting pillars of research-based curricula and effective teaching practices, as well as ongoing assessment, and highly individualized teaching practices.
So this
that ensure
also,
that
this
every child
website
makes
also
progress towards
has
school readiness.
some good
This
information
presentation
on
focuses
practice-based
on the foundation of the
coaching.
house.
¿Cómo te miras cuando estás feliz?
Building positive relationships with children is the first step to creating an engaging learning environment. Building positive relationship, developmental and learning in later years. They get to know each child, their likes, their interests. Teachers show their interest by getting close and sharing activities
I love
and
this video
conversations.
because it
And
has a very
teachers
cumulative
understand that it takes
effect.
time
It's
to
really
make
short.
connections that matter.
It says some of the same
Teachers
things
foster
over and over
connections
again,
throughout the day,
but it talks
day
about
after day.
taking time,
It takes lifestyle and
personalized interactions, and it has a real power to it.
Dije, oh my goodness, ¿dónde mi linda? No vino.
It takes time to listen, to honor a child's language. It takes time to notice, to pay attention to a child's feelings. It takes time to share, to play with the same toys, or have a special conversation. It takes time to encourage, to respect each child's interests and efforts. This short presentation highlighted the importance of fostering connections in the early childhood classroom, creating and sustaining positive relationships with every.
And I think that is, in a lot of these, you'll see 15-minute in-service suites. A lot of these federally funded sites have very short videos. They're mostly geared for practicing teachers. So they're wonderfully short. You know, a lot of them are 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And so they can be very easily woven into some of your courses. So the Center on Parent, Family, and Community Engagement, I talked about this a little bit last night. This is another one of the federal TA centers, and it is a terrific site. I mentioned the Compendium of Parenting Programs, that kind of consumer reports report that reviews these programs that could be used in early care and education programs. But it also has a lot of videos about supporting families facing adversity, families who are homeless, or facing other challenges. And another thing it has are these simulations, which I haven't been able to access. I'm going to go on the site and try again. And I wonder, oops, doesn't want to go. For some reason, this site is, let's see if it will take me. Okay, so this is the Compendium of Parenting Interventions. It'll take me there. But that's not really what I want. This is what I want. So here we go. Have you all been on this site very much? So they have a section. I have to say this site kind of drives me crazy because they have such good material. It's very disorganized. I cannot figure out, you know, how they decided to. Oh, I shouldn't say that on, but it's hard. It's really hard to navigate. You agree? Yes, there's a lot there. But it's all good. So if you see down here, they really address issues of building, how programs can help families get on a path to financial security. So it goes beyond just dealing with more traditional parent engagement. And you know, we had a discussion in our last session about students really wanting to help families, you know, move out of poverty, and how students feel so privileged and kind of overwhelmed by families who have so much less. And I think this is a great site for helping students think about what programs can do by tapping resources in the community. There is a section here, if I can get it, that has these wonderful simulations, they're called. Here we go. They're the multimedia digital tools. And they probably won't let me play them, but I'll try. So this simulation actually shows a teacher or a family worker interacting with a parent. And it's a little bit like a make your own adventure, because you can alter what the teacher or family worker says to the parent and change it, and it'll change the parent's response. And I think this one, it's very sophisticated. And have you used it?
I use it on my online class, on my face-to-face. I have them do the simulation, and then they have to write a paper that talks about what they learned from the simulation, what they would do different next time.
Oh, wonderful.
What they've learned. So, yeah, they love it. The students love it because they are actually choosing their engagement.
So do you have them tell you what occurred during it, or can you see what happened in the simulation?
No, I have them just write
They
a
write like a
paper
summary.
that just says what happened, what surprised you. You know, I ask them specific questions to get them to reflect on what the experience was.
That is so interesting. So I can imagine that they learn a lot from that, and they could even do it again, right?
Right,
Because
they
you
can go through and do it as many times as they want to.
Right, it's kind of an amazing tool. And when you think about it, when I played around with this, I thought, how many teachers or family workers are really going to have time to use this? Because it's pretty long. But students would have time. So this is this golden opportunity when students have the space to really learn and use a tool like this. I mean, I almost think that this tool is made for students even more than it's made for practicing teachers, even though the site is kind of geared towards the practitioners. So it's wonderful to hear that. So I'll try to get it going. Does your computer have sound? Yes.
And if you say no, it gives you captions.
Oh, okay, so that solves that problem. Okay.
Hi, I'm Rosemary. I've worked for Head Start for the last 4 years, and I love what I do. In fact, my daughter was in early Head Start and Head Start many years ago, and the program changed our lives in many positive ways.
Sorry, I can't get it up
One of the
more.
most important things I've learned is that building a strong relationship with families is essential. We all know how important families are in the lives of our Head Start kids. And when we have strong relationships with families, we're helping to promote positive learning outcomes and healthy child development. Having strong relationships with families also helps smooth out conversations involving uncomfortable feelings or challenging topics. And when parents feel comfortable with us, children can sense that. And that makes our relationships with children so much more positive, too. In the last few years while working with the program, I learned a few techniques that helped me form solid relationships with families from my very first interaction with them. I'm confident about the techniques I already use, but I'm always looking for ways to improve at my job, and I love hearing about new strategies that can help. Lately in my Head Start program, we've been talking about techniques that really work when building relationships with families. Together, in this 20-minute interactive training,
Oh, so
we're
it's
going
not
to
that
talk
long.
about these strategies and practice putting them to use so that we can effectively set goals with families and share information back and forth about their children, which we know helps us achieve healthy child and family development and school readiness. This training is broken into 5 parts, which you can see if you click on this menu icon. Right now, we're in the introduction. In a moment, we'll talk about specific communication strategies to strengthen relationships with families. Then we'll practice these strategies by talking to a mother and her child who are considering enrolling in Head Start. Next, we'll talk about how our practice conversation went and how to use these strategies in the real world.
So
And
that's the
finally,
part
in
that
the
gets into the
conclusion,
simulation.
I'll give you some information about additional resources you might find useful. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, so if I could,
So
I'd
we
like
wanna
to get
strengthen
ahead to the
relationships with
simulation.
families, All
I don't
of
know
the
if I
strong
can do
relationships
that.
I've had with families in the past were rooted in trust and comfort, which I built by getting to know the families.
Okay,
being
thanks.
genuine, sincere, curious about them and their goals, and supporting them as they figured out how to accomplish those goals. Earlier, I mentioned some strategies that we've been talking
I just
about
go
in the
like
Head
that?
Start program. Ways to strengthen the agenda. Remember, our goal is to let them stay motivated and believe in themselves. Job. And how much energy is this family putting in to figuring out things that work for them and their child? And maybe I'll say something like, how nice that you kept working with him and found this interesting way to teach him his shapes. Or, you've clearly been working hard at helping him learn about his shapes. But supporting parental competence isn't just about pointing out the parents' efforts. It's also about helping them feel more sure of themselves, that they understand their child's behavior.
So is this seems
For
to be
example, if this parent is
commentary
concerned
on
about her son not
using
playing with
certain
other kids,
strategies.
you might say, so he's an only child and hasn't been around other kids in the past. What do you think it's like for him now that he goes to the playground and is around all these other kids? By asking in this way, you're encouraging the family to reflect on their child's behavior. Maybe the parent would say, he seems confused. I guess he doesn't understand who the other kids are and he doesn't know he can play with them. I try to remember that most parents are not interested in general child development. They're interested in their child. So some of these strategies might seem simple in doing the thing I love most first, and also by leading families to reflect on their child's behavior and better understand it. Okay, I think we've talked enough. Time to practice putting these strategies to use.
Okay, so we'll see
Yesterday, I spoke with Mercedes
a
and Ray
minute
Martin
of this
about
and
their 3-year-old
then
daughter,
give you the
Jada,
idea of what the
enrolling her in Head
simulation looks
Start.
like.
Today, the Martins are headed over to the center for an intake visit, a perfect opportunity for you to help me practice using the techniques we've talked about. Our goal for the visit will be to build a strong relationship by gaining the family's trust, beginning with this first Head Start meeting. The partnership we form will allow us to work together to promote positive learning outcomes and healthy development for Jada, and to help the entire family meet their goals. During the intake visit, you'll decide everything I should say. Here's how it'll work. You'll have a menu here containing different techniques you might want to use. Things like observing Jada's behavior and describing it, and encouraging Mercedes to share about Jada. When you roll over each technique, you'll see specific choices of what to say. Select one to see it played out. So, can you tell me a little about Jada?
Well, she's 3. She's a good kid. She's smart. I've been home with her for the last 3 years, so we spend a lot of time together.
Then your menu will reappear with new choices, and you can select what you want to say next. If you aren't sure you've made the right decision, or you want to explore what the different choices might lead to, you can always undo it and select a different option. If you ever want to look back at all the choices you've made in the conversation, there's an ongoing transcript of the conversation right here. Occasionally during the conversation, you'll be able to glimpse into the minds of the family. When a thought bubble appears, click on it to hear what the family member is thinking.
I wonder what Jada's classroom will look like. I hope this is the right thing for her.
Finally, you'll also have a meter indicating the strength of the relationship with the family. The choices you make will affect the meter and cause the strength of the relationship between you to fluctuate. Once you fill this meter
That
up
would be
to the very
nerve-wracking,
top,
wouldn't it, if you really had something like that?
relationship with the family, and the conversation will end. In real life, this conversation would continue. You've already gained valuable information that you can use to begin filling out the paperwork, or other things may arise.
Okay, so you get the idea.
But for
It's
the
a
purposes of this training,
really nice tool. So now I'm going to give a little plug to a project that we have at National Center for Children in Poverty called Child Care and Early Education Research Connections. And this is also a federally funded project, and our website has a set of continually updated database of continually updated research articles that are from peer-reviewed journals and from government reports and reports from organizations. And we actually have a team of librarians who spend 8 hours a day combing Early Childhood Research Quarterly and other journals, getting you research reports and updating our database so that it's very current, but they also comb the web for things that are coming out that are not in peer-reviewed journals from early care and education orgs, policy organizations, and government organizations or government agencies. And so there are a couple things I wanted to show you on Research Connections, because I'm assuming all of you use research articles in your courses. So this is actually a really useful place where you can get search for articles. So here's our site, and a couple things I want to show you. You'll always find on our homepage about 7 very recent articles. This changes about every week or two, recent highlights from our collection. We have a meeting and we choose a set of articles that we, are very varied in content. There's almost always one that has social emotional content. And we list them here, not by title, but because we want to make this accessible to a policy audience as well as researchers and faculty, we do it in the form of a question. For example, one of them is, the bottom one is, how do state-funded pre-K programs approach family engagement? What are the links between preschool children's social skills and observe pretend play in outdoor childcare environments? That's the third one. So we phrase everything in terms of a question. Yes, so great question. So you're lucky because you are at a university or college. And I'll show you how to do that. We are not, because of copyright, we don't have the full article for most of these, so we don't have an easy link. But because you're at a university, you should have access to almost everything here.
Funding, our access has been cut quite a bit. So
Oh, really? Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
So
we've lost a lot of access. I don't know if others. I'm sorry, what?
Don't belong to iShare.
No, we have but like our journal, I shouldn't say that, but I think we joined it a few years ago, but our online journal access has dropped dramatically over the last 6 months. Yeah, that's what we're losing. I don't know if you have that too, but we've lost a lot of that. Okay.
Oh my gosh, so that, okay, so, a lot of things, some things are accessible. Almost all government reports, and there are a lot of synthesis articles. Anything that we can get, we do put on, if it's a peer review.
Yeah. Also, I'm a NACI member, and NACI will do, occasionally, we'll put some free articles that are around early childhood, and I've sent people who aren't,
Right.
just access them.
Right.
Sometimes they go away, they're not like they are
Right.
forever, but they do go in and, so sometimes you'll see something from one of the peer review journals
Yes.
that would cost you money, but
They make it accessible. Right, right. So I'll show you a little bit more about access. So you can search by topic. So let's type in, I'm going to type in child trauma, which is one way to do it. And you can limit whether you're searching for peer review only, or if you want to cover, you know, everything, which would include organization and government review. And so when I typed in child trauma, I'm getting here services for families of infants and toddlers experiencing trauma, a model for creating supportive trauma-informed culture for children in preschool settings. These are both, now this one, services for families of infants and toddlers experiencing trauma, that is an OPRE report that we would have, right? And it would be a beautiful synthesis report of research, which would be ideal for a class. Sometimes those reports are, you know, even more accessible. And then here's one, here's one I wanted to show you. A model for creating, here's the one. Okay. Oh, I wanted to show you one. Oh yes, a model for creating a supportive trauma-informed culture. This one is about the Head Start Trauma Smart, which some of you may know about, which is a wonderful new model for trauma-informed care in early Head Start. That is in a peer review article. So if I click on full text option, I think you're going to be disappointed. Let's see, it's telling me, it says open access. So I don't, wow, there it is, okay. So there we go. Yeah, so that's great. So I'm glad that I did that. Okay, so there's that. And I want to get back to Research Connections and show you one other thing on there. Whoops. Sorry. So you can also search by topic. So over here, can you see these are very light? We have lots of different topics. This says programs, interventions, and curricula. I'm going under the plus sign, and I'll scroll down and you can see some further subtopics. I'm going under interventions and curricula. And then I have some further subtopics, and I get to social and emotional, okay? And I have another set of findings, articles. ACT UP, Calm Down, Mental Health Consultants for Preschools, and lots of different articles. Now, what I want to tell you about this is you can select things, save them, save the articles that you want. You can also cue it to tell you that you want to know about more articles like this and get an alert about that, which is really nice. So it keeps you informed about the topic that you're interested in. And last but not least, I want to show you that under Make Connections, news and where is it? This is where you can sign up for news and resources. So when you get news and resources, it says sign up today. You will get something that looks like this. You'll get a list of research studies that are brand new. You'll get policy resources. This policy resource is what is the current understanding of the relationship between infant-toddler development and school readiness. And this even has a recent webinar we're telling you about, opportunities in the field. And so the news and resources is very nice. It really keeps you informed about the research, and we just added webinars. So it's very easy to sign up, and that's under Making Connections. Okay, so that's research connections. And you have another little handout on that. So those are the online resources I wanted to tell you about. Any questions about Research Connections or these other resources? Okay, so we have a little bit of time, and I wanted to also tell you about a project that we're doing in New York City, and share with you a couple resources we're using from that project. Let's see if I can get back. Okay. So in your handouts, you will see something called, I gave you 3 tools from our project, something called the Teacher Practice Tool, the Teacher Reflection Tool, and the Coaching Record. And I will very briefly tell you about this project, and then tell you about these tools and just suggest how I think they might be useful to your teacher candidate in their student teaching work that they do and their reflection activities. In this project in New York City, we are, it's called New York City Preschool Continuous Quality Improvement, and we're training, the goal of the project is to increase the capacity of preschool programs to do continuous quality improvement. And it kind of grows out of the idea that programs need to engage in continuous quality improvement on their own and not just always depend on outside professional development specialists coming in because we can't afford to have them there all the time. They need to also do this work all the time. And so we are, we've developed this model where we're training ed directors, education directors who are the instructional leaders in our programs to do coaching, practice-based coaching with teachers. And they're using these tools, which I'll tell you about. And in addition to that, we are having teachers do reflection as a sort of companion activity on their practices during the week. And together, they're focusing on primarily on social emotional teaching practices and language support practices. Those two, kind of mixing those up in activities. Those are the 2 things we're focusing on. So we developed something called a Teacher Practice Tool. And this is kind of this, a little bit of a Cliff Notes. It's a description of very specific teaching strategies in different domains. And it's certainly not, you know, the be-all, end-all of, you know, it's not an encyclopedia of teaching, but it's a handy tool. Some teachers have even made little keychains with them. And it helps them kind of remember if they want to practice some specific strategies, they can select. So the first set of strategies helps them focus on ones having to do with supporting positive teacher-child relationships and social-emotional competence. So these are teaching strategies, and they're very, you know, fundamental ones. So for example, the first one is that the teacher talks positively to children about their individual interests, preferences, and personal circumstances, and then the box always gives some examples. This would be considered a, you know, social emotional teaching strategy to support a relationship. And we've actually found this one useful because often teachers think of building a relationship as pretty much being nice to children. You know, if I'm warm, if I'm nice, if I don't yell, then I'll have a good relationship. But it's always a lot of this kind of rushing around, saying good job. And it's not, what we saw in the video where a child feels known, by the teacher, where there's a connection and teacher knows the child's cousin's name and what, that kind of thing. So this gets at that. So the way we use this, let's go to the teacher reflection tool first, because that's a little easier to explain. So what we ask teachers to do is choose a couple, just 2 or 3 teaching strategies, both from social emotional domain and from language. But if you're doing this for social emotional, say for a class, it could be just those. But often it's helpful for them to have practice mixing them, practicing them together. So they would choose a couple strategies. They might be, just for example, okay, I'm going to choose some strategies to practice. I'm going to choose them from the TPT, and I'm going to choose an activity setting. The activity setting might be a small group activity. And let's say my strategies would be, one would be oral language. I'm going to introduce some rich vocabulary, use some child-friendly definitions. And I'm going to choose 2 social emotional strategies. One would be modeling or demonstrating positive social behavior. And I might do that kind of at the beginning of my small group activity and even have children, helping me demonstrate. And then I'll coach children. That'll be my 3rd one. And I'm going to intentionally practice these, have them at the forefront of my thinking when I do my small group activity, which I do every day, right? So it's not an extra activity. We're not asking them to plan. This is part of what they do. So I do that, and then I take a couple minutes and picture your student teachers doing this, trying to do this. And then I write down answers to these questions in the middle. That's my reflection. And it's, what are some examples of when you effectively use the strategies you selected to practice? And this is really asking the question, I intentionally tried to use a couple of these strategies. When was I able to use them, So, oh yeah, when I did the introduction to the activity, I demonstrated, So just taking a couple notes on that, reflecting. Sometimes a teacher might, feel kind of overwhelmed and not be able to, but almost always we find that teachers use more of them than she even realized when we do the coaching. And in fact, the coach points out more than the teacher even realized. The second question is, what are some examples of children's positive responses to the teaching strategies? We always include that because, teachers and candidate teachers are so rewarded by children's positive responses and need to include that in that reflection. It's so, it's so a part of why they're doing what they're doing. So thinking, oh, when I demonstrated that and they helped me with that, the children later on hugged each other, and I think it's because they, they became friends during that interaction. And looking back on the activity, were there other times you might have used any of these strategies to enrich children's learning? That's the kind of missed opportunities, right? And teachers are always too hard on themselves. But that's what you want them to think, oh, well, I might have, done it, tried that at the end or something. And then what we ask them to do is go the next step. They've thought about it to themselves. We then want them to get together with another teacher in their program or with their assistant teacher. Usually it's their assistant teacher, but in the case of a student teacher, it could be another student teacher in the, practicing at that site or someone else in the program. and review the reflection and then answer these questions. How can we use these strategies more often in the classroom, in the same activity setting, or in others? And how could we modify or strengthen the curriculum so that we can use these strategies more? And that's really wonderful. It's this, idea of when you're teaching someone, reviewing with someone else, you're really solidifying your learning, but it's also helping the other person share and learn too. So when I thought about how we're using this with our teachers, it seemed like a potential way to structure reflection. Are you all using anything similar to this, or how are you helping your teachers reflect? Any reactions to this or thoughts about the way you're doing reflection?
I like this idea. For practicum, to give the students an assignment like this and then have them come back to seminar and pair up with another student, it would be really helpful, I think.
I'd love to hear how that goes.
And especially in terms of reflecting on what they did and how they can use it. Yeah, I think it's a
I
useful
found
tool.
I do a lot of reflecting with the students, and particularly when it comes to navigating the social relationships in the classroom, I find that students struggle with that, right? Everyone kind of comes back. That's the big thing in the classroom when they get into practicum or teaching. And when I go and I kind of support and model that in the classroom, it seems to go well. They start using those strategies. But that question about where else might you use it during the day, I find that when things start to go a little off track for the student, they get really stressed, and then they kind of forget about, okay, well, I used this a couple days ago and it worked really well and I could use it right now. So I really like that next piece of adding that in, where it kind of, outside of the classroom, outside of the stress, gets you to step outside yourself a little bit, hopefully nurturing that reaction to try these other strategies. So I really
overlearning it, kind of, the more you reflect and practice, you overlearn, so it's not so difficult in times of stress to use it. It's a little more automatic. Yeah, that's what I think these, and it's like what we were talking about last night too, that these are like career-long jobs, right? To learn how to use these strategies in times of stress. Yeah. Other thoughts? Questions? I don't want to keep you too long, so I'm going to check on, oh my gosh. We have till 11 though, right? We have a couple more minutes. Are you, I feel like I'm ignoring you all back there, and I haven't even seen your beautiful faces. I'm sorry. It's because I couldn't get them to move this, so that's why I'm stuck back here. So any other thoughts on how you're doing your reflection with your students, student teachers? So I wanted to tell you also about the coaching form, which is kind of a companion and also uses the TPT. And this may be a little bit more challenging, although you could do it maybe when you're out visiting. But I'll tell you how we use it. So there's a coaching record, and if you turn to the back page, right, of the first page, it says coaching observation, and there are 2 columns. And I should come up here, and then I'm not stuck back there now. Now I can see you. This is the back page of the coaching record. So you should have a form that says coaching record. It's got a couple pages, and then the back of the front page. Does everybody have it? Okay. So the way we use this is our ed directors are our coaches, right? And they visit the teachers in our classrooms. We want them to go in once a week, right? And do practice-based coaching. So what they do is they choose some social emotional teaching strategies from our TPT. And they, the teacher and the coach agree in the session before on what the teacher's going to practice. And that, of course, becomes part of her reflection. But the coach then goes in, and the coach knows that the teacher is going to intentionally try to use this set of strategies during the observation, right? Because those are the ones she's been practicing. So they might be the ones we've just talked about. We'll stick with those, right? Using child-friendly definitions to enhance vocabulary, demonstrating, modeling positive social behavior, and maybe coaching the children to use some positive social behavior. So then the teacher, again, it's during routine activities. She's doing a small group activity. The coach is there at the right time to observe. And the coach writes down, takes some notes on those targeted activities. It's not a running record. She doesn't write down everything. Just writes enough to sort of know the context. But basically, if she sees, oh, you know, the teacher's coaching these children to cooperate together to, say, help each other's tilt the paper if they're like playing with paints and seeing how the colors run together. That's the small group activity. Or they're cooperating in mixing some paints together. She's writing down that targeted practice, you know, coaching children, and this is how it's done. And then in this column, she's writing down some missed opportunities, or, you know, oh, she's thinking, I might have used this strategy here, or, you know, teacher might have tried using this strategy over here. And then we have the feedback session, and we have a kind of a protocol for a feedback session. And of course, you know, the coach always asks the teacher how things went. What do you think? You know, how do you feel about it? And then the focus is really on the coach getting the teacher to recognize the strategies that she used. It's celebrating her use of those targeted strategies. That's the most important, because when you, it's like muscle memory, you know, when you use a strategy, a teaching strategy, and know you've used it, you've really learned how to use it. You don't really learn that much when you're told you didn't use it, you know, you just don't learn that much. But when you're kind of, when you've had this immediate experience and you're made aware of it and you talk about it, that's great learning. So that's the focus of the feedback. And because the record keeping focuses on that, the coach has this wonderful record. And it's easy to do. So you all, when you go out and observe teachers, or even if you could get your teacher who's supervising to do this, it would be wonderful to have them do it. Or what's really empowering, if you can get your teacher to agree to be the, what would the word be, coachee, the person who's being observed and who's trying out some strategies, and you can have your student teacher be the coach, observing and writing down the strategies. That is also a very powerful learning experience. We've had teachers do that, and they learn a lot by observing and really noting, and also being able to say, you know, if they're brave enough, I actually would have used that, you know, coaching, I would have modeled some positive social behavior right here, you know, during this part of the small group activity. In other words, giving some feedback and teaching the teacher something.
Can I ask, when you're doing the TPT and the coaches are kind of talking about what they would like individuals to do next, how do you decide what areas you'd like someone? I've been really interested in that appreciative inquiry model.
Yeah.
How do we utilize strengths and
Right, right.
I'm kind of wondering, how does that get decided in that coaching relationship?
Yeah, that is really challenging. We talk about that a lot too. So we say that if someone has really mastered some strategies within an activity setting, they could try the same strategies in another activity setting. That's one option if they want to do that. And that's good because it doesn't mean that you can necessarily, generalize. We know that. Some people really need to try things out in other, in morning meeting, it's so different with a large group versus, so that's an option, and I think that that's a good way to go. Or if they've, really mastered a set of strategies in a couple different settings, they may need to move on to some new strategies. So that's kind of how we think about it. But there's no real formula for it, and some people might get really sick of some strategies, and they, then you might say, all right, then let's move on and try something new. Or they might, just not be getting it, so they might just need a change of pace. Then it'd be good to move on. I don't know, do you all have, I think that's really a tricky thing and very individual. Yeah. So that's just, another tool. And I just want to, I think our time may be almost up. I want to, pardon me?
4 minutes.
Okay. So I'll just tell you that our teachers are, enjoying doing these kinds of reflections. It's not been torture or anything. They actually really like it. And they're very busy. The coaches like it, so I wouldn't be afraid to try it. I think it might be worth it, and I would just love to hear from some of you about how it's working within pre-service setting, how some of these tools can work, because I really do believe. So at the last session there was some discussion about the Linda Darling Hammond tool that's used in the state for reflection. But then there was talk about how this is a little bit different because this is more in the sort of day-to-day. And so would be very interested to hear, about your experience really trying any of these. So I think that's it. Do you have other questions or thoughts or resources or practices that you're sharing that you want to share with others? I'm really impressed with this group.
I have a resource that I think is really fun to use with my students.
Oh, good.
It's not just about social emotional development.
No, that's.
It's a webcast that two folks do. It's called the Child Care Bar and Grill. If anyone's heard. And it's
Bar and Grill?
It's silly. It can be a little inappropriate, but it's about two child care providers who they sit around and they get like a bottle of wine and they just talk about a topic. It's funny. It's just funny.
That sounds great.
And so like if they're posting something on a website to have students listen to,
right.
I love that one.
So they talk, are they?
Child Care Bar and Grill.
That sounds good.
That sounds hilarious.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is it a video or a?
They have a couple videos, and those can get a little. They have like a whole saying that they say that has a swear word in it, and so you can take what you want to do with that. I think it's pretty funny. I think it kind of depends about the dynamic and relationships you have with your students.
Yeah, right.
But they talk about parent relationships. They talk
Right.
about curriculum planning. They talk about what do you do when you feel like your director doesn't understand you. And
Right.
what you want to do in your classroom and what is play and what's not play. And they just do really fun stuff.
Oh, how fabulous. Because, if there's anything, any sort of intervention, I think, for mental health, it's humor. I mean, it is absolutely the best.
When they post things on their websites, like they're wearing wigs, they're just
Yeah.
silly and fun.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. What a wonderful resource to end the session on. I'll have to add that too to future sessions. I want to thank you all so much. You're a great group. Thank you.